So where do you want to jump off, man?
I just kind of wanted to give you a little background on like the situation, like my realization
Okay.
that I've had recently. I'm working in sports betting right now, and it's been a really cool gig. It was a really cool gig because it was one of my first jobs. Not it's a cool gig regardless of that because it's a cool environment to be in. You're around sports, you're watching a lot of sports all day. Th at the end of the day, it not as fulfilling as I would hoped, and it doesn't have as much upward mobility that I want for myself
Okay.
and my life financially, I guess.
Okay.
And I kind of it might have happened when I turned 31 recently, and I think that maybe like I had that realization that like, hey, working this salary job that's kind of, it is what it is. It's not going to ever kind of like, push me over that edge of being financially free.
Yeah.
So I guess I had reached out to you before through a friend that had told me about like your book venture, and I have a couple children's books out there now, and we had met, and you were pretty far ahead of me in terms of obviously like you had already gone through the exit and everything, so like it was hard to like grasp all of that when I was like I had one book out at the time, so it was like he's talking about like basically lead gen and like how he was your mind was 10 steps ahead of where I was at. So
Yeah.
I took down a bunch of notes and still have like the idea of like self-printing those rather than just the KVP stuff that I'm currently doing. Um, and also the other thing is working fully remote for a sports betting company. I found it really hard to network because you're just a guy behind a computer at home. And I shot that message off to you kind of just in my late night thoughts, of like, what can I do next? How can I, make more for myself? I have a girl in my life now, and like I want to be able to provide enough where she can, work part time or not work at all one day. And I realize that 9 to 5 is probably not going to do that. Meanwhile, I pop on your Instagram, stories, and I see your beautiful house in you're in Austin, right?
Yeah. Yeah. In Austin.
You see your beautiful house. I've seen that you've had a couple exits, and I'm sure you to some extent realize that there's an admiration from afar. And I guess me reaching out to you today was one to kind of you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take, so I might as well try
Yeah.
to try to find a way to network.
Yeah.
And two, I kind of wanted to ask. I know kind of what you're doing now. Obviously, I know that when we talked last time that you started an affiliate, and it led you into the books. And now I know I'm not 100% sure. I know that you're still doing some lead gen type of affiliate stuff now. I saw that you work with ClickBanks, but I was kind of wondering kind of what your situation is now, and like what you're doing.
Yeah. So let's start with the easy part. So we have an ad agency now. So that was just kind of the natural progression. The goal is to build
Hmm.
something again. I really love marketing, and I think at this point in my career, like we do no outbound, so it's all inbound. And it's just guys I know and guys I like working with and so it was just easy. And so, we were just a couple guys, and now we had 7 people start in the last 2 weeks. Um,
Hmm.
and so like now all of a sudden it's like it's turned into this thing. And so like you feel the weight of operations and business and payroll and like all those things again. But I
Hmm.
think at the end of the day, it comes down to, uh, my desire is to build something else. Like I'm a 0 to 1 guy. I like the tinker kind of shit. I got buddies,
Hmm.
1 to 2 guy, or some that are the 0 to 2. That's not me. I don't think it's one of my skills. And even if I could figure it out, it's probably not something I really enjoy doing. Um,
Hmm.
I just like give me a task or a problem. Let me figure it out. Um, so to kind of go back, a little bit. So really, you touched on a couple things. So like one, the Zoom piece, and you're just a guy behind a desk. That's fucking hard, dude. Like this business is fully remote. Um,
Yeah.
I hate it. We were always in the office. At least the core team was in the office. And so the piece that I miss now is like everything is like, can I set up a Zoom call? Like, are you available for a chat? And like those sorts of things. And I really do believe the magic happens in the hallways, right?
Hmm.
I think we have a little bit of a culture issue with the company in the sense that like they're not they don't all go to lunch together, right? They don't
Hmm.
grab a beer after work. And so like I see it. And so that's one of my rocks with the EOS framework is like, how do we just really help build that culture and the connectivity? Um, what triggered that, by the way, is there's this guy, Adam Pivko, who posted this thing on Twitter that was like this little app that was like type in your headline and it'll tell you whether it's going to crush or not. And he's like, I've never seen anybody get above an 86. This is a Friday night, by the way. So everybody's like off. So
Hmm.
I posted in the company chat and I was like, 100 bucks to everybody who beats 86. Dude, you want to take a competitive, high performing team and give them a task? By the way, it could have been $10 and they probably would have done it.
Hmm.
Like it just went nuts. And then everybody, like, dude, it was great. I hit up my partner on the side afterwards and I was like, dude, that was like the highest engagement, most fun we've had as a company, like, yet. And what did it
Yeah.
cost me? It cost me 400 bucks, by the way. So four guys got paid.
Yeah.
But it was super. So I feel that in the, it's a challenge. It's a challenge. And I hope that in the future, for at least the next thing that we build, there's an in the office component on some level, or there's more, I don't want to say quarterly, but more scheduled, like go to a place, see the people, do the thing. Um,
Hmm.
dude, most people on the team I've never met in person. That's
Yeah.
insane. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I saw one of my coworkers that just happened to be in town. It was the first time I'd seen a non-digital person, and he was just, and it was non-work related, but it was great to like see him talk outside of a meeting. And that was the first time I'd seen anybody in my company non-digitally in 3 years in person. And it's like how are you supposed to bounce any ideas off anybody or show where your mind's at or your value if you're just stuck if all you're focused on is just those work meetings without any extra communication really outside of what your one task is.
By the way, this is resonating. I feel you. So,
Yeah.
so when we go back to like I guess the core thing then is like you're in this career, you don't think like you think there's kind of a ceiling, uh,
Hmm.
and then like there's two drivers to it. At least the way that I look at it. One is money, and one is I guess what I would call like almost engagement. So like shit that just sends you down a rabbit hole. Like so, if you're a writer, let's say
Hmm.
you're generally not a writer or a stand-up comedian, maybe, right? Like you enjoy doing the thing, and so you get the reward from that, and it's not like very few writers make enough money to support themselves, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like it's okay because I just really like doing this thing. But then other guys are like, I just want the cash. And how do I get the most amount of cash with the least amount of work, or not even least amount of work, but consistent work?
Yeah.
So when I'll give you an example, and then I'll bring you back to like where do you sit, on the spectrum. But I remember when I was single, I would go out, I was like grinding. So working 6, 7 days a week, 12 to 16 hours a day, like that, it was obsessive, frankly. And I'm still that way,
Hmm.
still at 12, 12, 14 hours a day, even on this new venture. And I would have these women that would say, dude, you work so much, like you're never available. Like what? And I'm like, go date a banker. Right?
Yeah.
So the banker's going to make a bunch of money and he's off at 501.
Yeah.
But like that's not who I am, like at my core. So like go do that. And then the inverse is like, a woman used to date a banker and he's, just slow and steady, but I want more and somebody that's entrepreneur or whatever. So like it's always both sides of the spectrum. So when you take a look at this like glass ceiling, do you look at it as ownership of building a business? Do you look at it as income? Like how are you like what's the pain, I guess, or the challenge?
Yeah, I think the pain is just like almost like I said, it was such a great job when I just hit my 4 year work anniversary. It was such a great job, late 20s. This is
Yeah.
the best salary I'd had. And then kind of like the realization over those 4 years is like, okay, it was cool. You get a little bit complacent. You have more than you've ever had before. And then you kind of get to a spot and you start kind of looking at just the cost of life, how much houses cost. And then you start looking at what it would require for you to save or invest to actually make like meaningful money that you've always thought in your head,
Yeah.
I want to be I want to be a multimillionaire. Well,
Yeah.
if you're doing that on a salary job, okay, well, after taxes, if you, I guess if you invested it and it compounded, yeah, you have a chance if you saved every dime for the next 15 to 20 years. But I think that the pain point is the cap in the ability to earn more, uh, that so that you can invest more because most salary jobs today that you find, unless you have like a pretty in demand skill, just most salary jobs that people are getting out there that are kind of like that mid lower level, you don't have, and with the new current cost of the world, you don't have a ton of expendable income to even invest. You kind of almost find yourself and a salary in 2000 even 10 to 2015, if you had that same salary then, it stretched quite a bit further. You'd have
For sure.
a more expendable income to invest, and all of a sudden you start to see the future. Well, I put this money away, it's going to compound over time, this all makes sense. But then now when I look at it, it's like I don't have, like, if I even if I'm investing the money and it's compounding over time, it's going to take a really long time. So I think the pain points, the realization of this isn't fast enough, it's not big enough, and it's not giving me enough to go after, to go hunt. It just
Yeah.
is, it is what it is. Um and I guess the other pain point is like, I started a sunglass company a couple of years back. I was trying to dive in and got a cease and desist from Oakley. Like right, that's like, and then I realized, wow, like that, that was a lot of effort that I put forward just to get a cease and desist. Like where now I just have hundreds of pairs of sunglasses just like in my garage. Like so
Yeah.
experienced failure right away, right there. And then I have a couple children's books out there on Amazon. They're basically just break even books. I pay ads, they sell, maybe $40 or even money with what I actually get back. I put it back into the bank account, it takes it back out in ads. It's just running itself. But so I guess where I feel stuck in the mud is that being remote like that, not having the ability to network, go out. That's hence why I reached out to you on Instagram. It's like I don't know where else to like go and network right now, and not feeling like I have like necessarily a direction with such a, there's so much information out there and so many people. Like you type in one self-help thing on Google, your Instagram is blown up with 550 different side hustles.
Yeah.
There's almost an overwhelming amount of like information. So like rather than trying to research all of that stuff, or like, you know, take a, because a lot of that stuff, yeah, it might actually work if you dive into it fully. But it's like rather than research and do, try and fail at 10 different things, maybe go to somebody that's has experience of companies with exits, that's done different things, whether that's books or lead gen,
Yes.
and see what they might recommend
So I
directionally.
Yeah, so I think
So,
there's a couple different things there. So the first one is it's just an anecdotal thing, but like the more money you make, I swear to God, the poorer you feel.
yeah,
Like the
lifestyle.
dude, the wealthiest I ever was like right out of college. I had a good salary. Like we were sneaking booze into nightclubs. Like I wasn't buying $14 martinis. My car was paid for. I was still on my parents' cell phone plan. I had roommates. Like you know what I mean? And I was like, dude, wait,
Yeah.
I had enough money to do whatever I want. By the way, I'm not staying at the hotel that I'm staying at now, flying, business or first class. I'm in like, what's the cheapest, right? But your priorities are different.
Hmm.
So, but then I think when you take a look at money, there's really two buckets. You have wealth creation, and then basically how do you take that wealth and then turn it into something else? So, like here, it really comes down to wealth creation. And there's really only a couple ways to do this. And there's a buddy of mine in Austin named Austin, who I'll introduce you to. He just started like doing newsletters and stuff on this, and he's like going all in on it. Great dude. Him and his wife, great. Like my wife and I are friends with him. Just a good guy to know and
Hmm.
talk to. But I think there's only three ways to make money. Four. Let's start with number four, luck. So grandma died, she's rich. So The one is professional services. So you're like a doctor or a lawyer and you work for a hospital, a law firm, whatever, investment account
Hmm.
or something along those lines, right? But it tends to be slower, steady, more predictable, but the income is greater than if you're flipping burgers.
Yep.
The other two sides of it are related, and then this becomes a personal choice in terms of what you want to do. The first one is sales. Sales is a great job. Um, I've done varying levels of sales just kind of in my life in kind of different roles, even if I wasn't the sales guy, like it was a very large component of what I did. Um,
Hmm.
and so you could be selling a product that is in high demand and you can make a shit ton of money,
Yeah.
right? So if you were selling solar, you were a mortgage lead sales guy, dude, in those sprints, you're crushing. Like in my mid 20s, guys went into mortgage and they were printing money. And, and then there was a second wave after that. Solar was really hot for a while, not so hot today. But can you sell a product? And then it just becomes a function of what product do you sell, right? The
Hmm.
other one, which is the entrepreneurial route, I believe the only way to be successful entrepreneurial is like you have to love what you do because what's that joke? It's I got tired of working so many hours, so I went to work for myself, and now I work twice as much as I did, right?
Yeah.
And so you do have to enjoy it because otherwise you'll get burnt out. And some people are cut out for it and some people aren't. And I have friends who want slow and steady salary and it's 501 or 601, whatever time they get off, they're set and they're just riding that salary increase. And maybe they're dual income and they're putting it away. And that's a lifestyle choice. That becomes sort of like that work-life balance thing.
Hmm.
But then I'm like, okay, so I have all the money in the world. I don't need to work anymore. What would I do? I'd probably start another business because that's the video game I like playing,
Yeah.
right? And so which direction you go, and by the way, it's not a full decision to do one or the other, but like on the entrepreneurial route, if like I said, if you love it, you love it. Like the issue is, and I'm sure you have friends like this too, who are like, dude, I got this amazing idea. And you're like, cool, that's actually a good idea. Do it. Dude, I can't do it, like, because of this, because of that. And it's like, there's YouTube for education, and all you have to do is prove the thesis, and you scrap some money together.
Hmm.
And I think over time too, there was like a post on Twitter. Somebody said something, and I wrote back about like, so I'm a unicorn. And what I mean by a unicorn is I'm one of very few, if not the only person who has the unique life experience that allows me to hold certain positions. For example, I worked in REITs. I worked for a hedge fund, so that's like finance. So I got real estate, I got finance. Then I got into marketing, so I know marketing pretty well. Then I got into kids' books, like, and now I have an ad agency. Like, it's just there's very few people who, if anybody else, that has those skill sets, right? Or even if you
Hmm.
take a look at the ad agency that we have, when we pitch to clients, or even though it's inbound and they know who we are or who I am or whatever, I'm like, here's one differentiator about us. I've run your side of the business. I've run a business. I've had inventory. I've had payroll and insurance and problems and debt and like all of these fucking things. And so when I think about our relationship, I have the ability for me to put myself in your shoes. And sure, an
Hmm.
agency owner is going to go, well, like we have had, I also run a business. I have payroll and I have problems and stuff like that. But then I'm like, yeah, but have you ever had inventory?
Yeah.
Inventory is like, dude, inventory is the fucking worst. So when you think about kind of these two big buckets, like, dude, I wish I could just sell a product and I could make, 250, $500,000 a year or more, depending on what you're selling. Or if it's like, I want to start a business and I'm willing to make a lot less, but the upside's a lot higher. Where do you,
Hmm.
where do you kind of sit?
It's funny. In that span of thinking. That's where it got kind of got the wheels really turning. And I have gone down the roads of reaching out to a really successful person in the corporate insurance field, where say, hey, you know
Yeah.
what, maybe I gotta start from the bottom, and that could be a very lucrative career. So I've gone down that. I've reached out to when I was in college. My first job was pest control for my buddy's dad, and I
Yep.
saw that he ran it to meet his needs. Basically, he wasn't trying to scale it, but he lived a very comfortable life and made pretty good money doing it. So
Yeah.
I've gone down the paths of, hey, do I dive into pest control, which kind of goes back to what you were saying about the entrepreneur side of things. Is do I love pest control? Do I want is that what I want to do? But can I see the vision of, hey, you basically take what is like dominantly like a boomer style business, because a lot of the pest control companies have been around, and add kind of a touch of digital, the new age digital marketing flair to it. Maybe you can acquire enough customers, have a couple trucks running around. Maybe that's got some upside to it to kind of get into that range, where life starts to get a little bit different for you if you can scale it over time. So I guess part of the call, and reason I reached out is there's the crossroads. Like I said, there's so much information about these different things that you can do, and I figured, why not see like what somebody in your shoes, if they were starting in, like, you were starting, you were in a salary job, you hadn't started much, or you hadn't started anything on your own, what direction would you go?
So it's important to remember that where you start is not where you end up. The
Yeah.
biggest lie I told, the most frequent, is like, did you always want to be a kid's book author? I was like, yeah, since I was like a little kid, as long as I can remember, I always wanted to make a kid's book. That's not true. That's not why we got into this business. It was opportunistic, right?
Hmm.
And so, and then I think it like, at 30, dude, I was still thinking my whole career was going to be in commercial real estate and finance. And
Hmm.
I didn't get into marketing until, my mid 30s. And then I realized I had the skill that I didn't know I had. And then I did well. And, the rest of the journey there. And so, like, it kind of comes down, like, I think you have three buckets. You have sales, you have operations, and then you have building. And so,
Hmm.
like, operations and building are different. So, like, building is the visionary. You came up with this idea for this business. You're going to grind until you get it done. And you are more focused on that than cash. So, you trade stability for upside, risk reward.
Hmm.
And so, I think something to consider too is like, well, what's the risk appetite? And so, like, I have another buddy. He and I started the same company. I started 3 months before him. They're a huge company. He's been there the entire time. He's in a very senior role, makes a great fucking living, great living. And so does his wife, who's also in private equity. They have a great life. And me, I made money, gambled it, made money, gambled, like, you know what I mean? Like, I took
Hmm.
the shot. Dude, the book business was 1.26 million in the hole at my low point, right? Like, that
Wow.
was self-funded. And so for me, I remember my dad said, pull the plug, and some friends as well, but they're like, dude, it's over. And I was like, I'll run this fucker into the ground or before I give up. And that's where I was. Now I'm married and have a family, and I am not doing that today.
Yeah, the risk appetite goes down a little bit.
It does. It does. The point there is that 130 is not old. Like, it's just not. I know it seems old. I was 30 once and I was like, I thought I'd be so much further ahead and whatever. Anyway, is what it
Yeah.
is. But then the other is when you take a look at those buckets, like, where do you want to be? Because that will dictate the channel that you go to. If you're just like, I'm a really good sales guy, right? So I'm a personable guy. I can sell shit, but like, I don't want to deal with HR and operations and fucking inventory and cash flow and all these fucking things. I want to sell the product, let somebody else do it, and I want to be paid for that. Nothing wrong with that. Like, I know a
Hmm.
lot of sales guys who make seven figures a year, right?
Yeah.
so there's that. But then there's other guys that are like, yeah, yeah, but I want to be able to make like 10 million or 20 million or more, and you won't get there with sales. And
Hmm.
so then it's like, what's the goal? How do you get there? And then how do you enjoy part of the path there? Like entrepreneurship's fucking hard. Like I had a
Yeah.
particularly hard week just with hours and running out of time. And so some people are like, I wouldn't trade that lifestyle for the amount of money that you make. And I'm like,
Hmm.
right? And so do I make it?
Yeah.
I totally do. But some people are like, dude, I'd take half of that or a quarter to not have to deal with what you deal with. And
Yeah.
I think that's the thing to consider. And then what, because if you said, hey, I'm going to go into sales, what do you sell? If you said, I'm going to go into product and build a business, what are you going to build? Are you going to build SaaS,
Hmm.
e-com? Are you going to build a service-based business like pest control? Side story, I went deep down the rabbit hole into pest control when I moved out to Texas as I was thinking through my next business. Uh,
Hmm.
deep, deep, actually. So so one, I want to hear your answer, and then two, I also want to understand like, so Oakley sends you a cease and desist, and then you stop.
Hmm.
Why'd you stop?
I had a partner in it with me that I was kind of putting in more of the backside man hours of it.
Yep.
I think didn't have much money, just a little self-funded outside the salary. Didn't have much money to fire off another order again. Also had the kind of the fear in the back of my head, like, okay, like I thought, I basically they didn't even file the patent for the sunglass design until after we had put our order in. So like when we got the cease and desist and we looked up when they with we I think they sent their patent to us. The patent when it got approved was actually after. So I think what happened with the sunglass thing is I got discouraged that I was going to go and find another style that I liked, and I was going to have the same shit happen to me. So I just kind of I shut the switch off because of the effort, and it wasn't necessarily that I didn't believe that I could make the sunglass thing work down the road, with different styles. I think I just at that time, I was just had got my first salary job, dumped what spare money I had into it, was like, shit, do I want to do that again, or do I want to like just kind of like chill? And there got the level of complacency, like I said at that time, I was ready to let it rip, and then I realized, oh, I was able to afford a car, and I'm comfortable right now. But then that comfort started diminishing as every year that I went by, realized, oh, I'm not making enough, and that's kind of I'm spinning the wheels on that stuff again. So, um,
And so when you take a look at those thank you for that. But when you
mhm.
take a look at those three buckets, like where, like what's, is it money? Is it ownership? Is it built? Like,
It's for the current concern is the current bucket that I would be in is I have the desire to make money for sure. Um, I think maybe the ownership stuff comes later on, when I get further up the what is it, the hierarchy of needs, of self-fulfillment and wanting. I think once I get to a level where I would go, wow, now I feel like, I'm financially successful right now. Maybe then the wheels start spinning towards, hey, now I want to build something. But where I'm at in my journey is, okay, how do I get, what do I do right now to like start to take action to improve my income situation?
do you think that would you trade income now for income later?
Um, do you mean like make nothing now to make
No,
more
I mean,
later? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, it's like the business piece, right? So it's like if you start a business, do you like it's a fucking grind or a side hustle, right? Until
Hmm.
it gets traction to a certain point where it can afford your salary but your upside's greater, but it's delayed.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
so
the intake. Yeah, I would definitely sacrifice instant gratification. I don't think that's a huge thing. I mean, it's not like I have some extravagant lifestyle at the moment. So it's like I mean, I grew up pretty poor too. So I've been down low. Like I know what having nothing feels like. So it wouldn't I don't think it would be like a crazy lifestyle hit for me to have like a delayed gratification to trade income now to build something and have high potential later.
And they're not mutually exclusive either, by the way, right? So you could go, I'm going to go get this sales job, increase my stuff, and then, you have some side time to test a bunch of ideas, right? Like the thing
Hmm.
is, where you start is not where, like I said before, where you start is not where you end up. And also, like the first idea that you have isn't necessarily going to be the one, right?
Hmm.
So when you're like, I think there's a bunch of fallacies in entrepreneurship. And I was at this event and I forget the guy's name, but he founded Method Soap, right?
Hmm.
And he gave up, by the way, fascinating story how he got in Method Soap and probably the most baller thing I've ever heard. But like he tests so they built this relationship with Target. And so now when he comes up with new products, he also owns Ollie, the supplements, and then he has this other kid.
Oh, I think I'm pretty sure I have Method soap and I bought my girlfriend
Right.
Ollie sleep gummies. So I have both
That's right.
products.
Same guy. So when he comes up with a new product, he has such a strong relationship with Target. Those products go into the end cap on something like a dozen or 20 Target stores to see if they sell through. If they don't, he takes it out back and shoots it. And
Hmm.
so there's this fallacy that like, oh, I just came up with an idea for Method Soap and I took this and I grew it. Oh, then I had
Hmm.
this idea for Ollie and I took it and I grew it, and then whatever the name of the third one is. But he's talking at this dinner. So it's this dinner party. So he's talking at this dinner and he's like, what most people don't realize is the 30 or 40 business ideas we took in the back and shot. Like they just didn't work, right? And so that guy is like, he's a product guy. And so he's just like running through these ideas and these products and sort of testing them. I have another
Hmm.
I have another buddy who's a marketer. I was a big product guy too, but he like has a scorecard in terms of like idea, and then he goes through different levels of validation, and he starts with a very large number and he ends up here, and then at any point those ideas can die, right?
Hmm.
And so this whole thing of like, I'm just gonna have this idea and I'm gonna start it and it's just gonna crush is just not like it's just not true.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is, right? The 22-year-old who just graduated from Stanford and somebody threw $20 million from a VC fund in his lap and he built this fucking thing and whatever. Dude,
Hmm.
that's lightning in a bottle and that's fucking luck. I know a lot of very, very rich people, and I don't know one of them that had a story that's similar to that,
Yeah.
right? You take a look at their journey, it's super, super choppy. And that's where it comes back to like each experience that you have builds on the next one. So,
Yeah.
so for example, if you said, "Hey, I want to go into sales," well, the natural progression is gaming, right? You can do a whole shift, but like the more adjacent you can get to what you know today, like kind of at least in my mind, it's like kind of the it's better. But you're like, who are the guys in my industry that are making the most amount of money? And are they smarter than me? By the way, the answer is generally not. So a lot of it
Hmm.
is luck, but luck is created by having a lot of cycles,
Yeah.
right? It's just, um, yeah, it's just having a lot of cycles. I think what it comes down to, though, and this is a personal choice and like interest, like looking inside, what are you really good at that you enjoy doing? What's your superpower, basically? Because that is where you're going to make the most amount of money. I thought that I would be in finance and that you know, I would just own office buildings and apartment buildings. And I went down that path for a long time. And not until I got into direct response marketing did I realize, like, dude, I just had this skill that I didn't even fucking know I had, which was better than my finance stuff. Like, I'm still an Excel jockey.
Hmm.
Were better than me, but like I was way better at this than I was at this, and it just comes naturally to me. And
Hmm.
so I just know that like that's the area that I'm going to make the most money in. And so if you come up with a new idea, if I came up with a new idea that's B2B instead of, D2C, like I just know D2C. I can do that shit myself.
Yeah.
So like I'm gonna
Yeah.
stay in this lane. And I think that's like That's really the important part. Now, I think that there's people that just, I want to find the perfect job. I want to find the perfect career. I need to absolutely love what it is that I do. That can be like, that can be a challenge. I think you see
Hmm.
a lot of, we interview a lot of people, and I have over the years and whatever. And a lot of people are like, well, I need this job has to be perfect. The fuck it does. Like, because you don't know where this job is going to lead you next. Or the only
Yeah.
reason we're talking is because you decided that you would make a kid's book,
Yeah.
right? And
That's
so
very, very true.
it's super random. Why?
Yep.
I'll just fucking get it done. And so,
Yes.
dude, it's like it's super random. Or with that business, the people that I've met, how are those guys going to help me with the next endeavor? And not that they owe me favors or anything, but it's just a relationship that I built, right?
Hmm.
And yeah, and so I think about those kinds of things versus like, I'm going to go work for this company in this industry. I'm going to be here for 50 years, and they're going to give me a gold watch, and then I'm going to retire with a pension. Yeah, those days are fucking gone. So,
Yeah.
but if you love what you do, you will just go deep. So if you're, now you can pay somebody enough that they don't really care. My dad tells the story of this guy. My dad was in textiles and apparel, and I don't know the guy's name or his company or whatever, but he's like, the guy's a tyrant. Everybody hates the guy, but he pays so well, everybody deals with that shit. Right. So,
Hmm.
so you can pay to overcome it, right? You're like, I'm not happy with my job, and, or, let's say, and the guy's like, all right, I'll double your salary. You're like, I'm happy. I'm happy.
Yeah. I could deal
Right.
with it, I guess.
Yeah. And so
I'll give home ec. I'll give home ec a second try from
yeah.
from super bad.
Yeah. And so I think that it's important to talk to people and come up with ideas and sort of and the right deal or opportunity will fall in your lap. It like always, like it just does. That's just kind of how the world works.
Hmm.
But it's that thesis of like create your own luck, right?
Yeah.
You're like, I'm gonna sit at home in my house, and one day some guy's gonna knock on my door and offer me a job for $1 million a year. You're like, no, no,
No, no,
that's not
not
gonna
gonna
happen.
happen. Yeah,
Yeah,
not
and
gonna happen.
so it's that getting out there piece. But I also
Hmm.
think when you find a thread or a business or an industry or something that you're interested in, pull the thread and go deep on that. So like, who
Yeah.
else do you know in that business that I could talk to? Who are the big talking heads? Who makes the most amount of business doing that?
Yeah.
Um, and then you go deeper, and then maybe you decide that's something I like or not, and then you can, exit out of that and then choose to do the next thing. Um,
Yeah.
for me, I just think entrepreneurial all the time. It's just my dad was. I like that's my core, and
Hmm.
I'm not afraid to lose all of my money. My wife is more afraid of it, but the reason is because I will always bet on myself. And if I'm
Yeah.
a salesperson, then I'm betting on someone else. And
Yeah.
so I know that if I bet on myself, eventually I will win. Or I hope, or I should, or the odds are good, right?
Yeah. 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 Gotcha. There's a
Um,
house. There's a house edge.
Yeah, by the way, there totally is because at the end of the day, am I the smartest guy in the room? Probably not. But I'll outwork you, right?
Hmm.
I'm not afraid of that. And so I'll overcome other problems by outworking you. And so for me, the entrepreneurial piece is just like where it's at. I was talking to another buddy of mine, I forget where we were, but I asked him this question. I was like, have you ever thought about if you lost all your money? And when I say all your money, I mean like all of it, all of it. And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, I'm going to tell you something interesting. Most entrepreneurs who have a business have actually played that out in their head. They have thought, what happens if I lost literally everything? And so for me, I was living in LA at the time, the first time I had this, and I was like, if I lost everything, now mind you, I'd probably move in with my parents. I'd probably sleep on a friend's couch. I wouldn't start, right? But I played it out. And so this is the bridge I would live under in LA, right? This is where I would sleep. This was like the homeless, you could be kind of homeless or whatever. Like this is where I would do it. This is where I would beg for money. And then I'm like, I'd probably get bored And then being homeless is just annoying. So then I would get a job at like Burger King, and then I'd probably get fired because I'd be telling the manager how to do his job better. But I put together enough money to get a laptop. And once I had a laptop, I'd figure out a way to make money online. And then after that, I would start a business and boom, and I'm out. And the thing with that though is the pool is only scary if you can't see the bottom. That's why the ocean is terrifying for some people because you can't see the bottom. But when you can, or you envision yourself touching the bottom, it's not so scary, right? You're like, dude, I don't know how deep this
Hmm.
pool is. You're like, you're 6 feet tall. The pool is 7 feet deep. You're fine, right?
Hmm.
Outside of sharks, I'm fucking terrified of sharks, but that's a whole.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jaws. And so, yeah, like and then if you said, hey, like I really want to go into the entrepreneurial side, then you have, in my mind, you have to be, to start a business, you have to be good at one of two things. You either have to be really good at sales, and that can be digital marketing, that can be knocking doors, that can be cold calling, like whatever the fuck it is. And then on the other side of that, you need, and it can be the same person who does both if you wanted to stand up your own business, but um, you need the product marketer, the person who is developing the thing and managing the thing that you are selling.
Hmm.
And so those are sometimes, particularly in small organizations or a startup, it's the same guy that's like doing both, right? But
Yeah.
like you will find that you end up moving to one of these paths. If you had a SaaS platform and it started growing, like you need somebody that's going to own the product and the dev and all of that. Or your sunglass company takes off, you need a guy that um, you need a guy that is like coming up, who's coming up with all the designs, right? And then
Yeah.
who's developing the product and has the vision for what it is that we're selling. So, and then you have different categories and different classes of business. For example, I would never, ever in a million years go into kids' books again. And that was my master class in business. And because that category had things that I don't like that I'll never do again. The number one is fixed perceived value. How do you charge $100 for a kid's book? You can't.
Hmm.
So can I charge $100 for this shirt? I could charge 1,000 if I throw the right brand logo on it,
Yeah.
right?
If
And
you
so
if you get people to perceive it the correct way.
yeah, yeah. And so with books, fixed perceived value. Like it's just that's a problem with it. And it's a gifting product inherently. And there's like even if it's for your own kids, and there's a bunch of other problems with it. Um, so then you think about, all right, cool. Well, I want to start a business. This is what I know. Where do I go? Like, what do I start that business with? The most valuable person in, and maybe this is, a skewed sense of maybe myself or something, but I believe this. The most important person in any business is sales. A great salesman, digital or in person or whatever, can sell a shitty product. A bad salesman can't sell the world's best product. And so it all starts with sales. Like
Hmm.
it just does. And so
Yeah.
that's the core comp, like for me anyway, with digital marketing, that's the core competency. And because I used to tell people, I'm like, we could sell a book with blank pages. Now, nobody will ever reorder for us. We're going to get a bunch of returns and we're probably going to go out of business or whatever, but guaranteed I could sell a book with blank pages. Um, and yeah, I'm just kind of rambling.
No, no, you're good. That's kind of why we got on here though. It's because I that's the it's the in hallway conversations. You got to bounce ideas. Sometimes that stuff clicks with people, and you never know what comes up in conversation. I think that's part of why I reached out to network because I know you've done really well. So it's okay.
I think if you have your ears and eyes open on in one regard, and then you are also actively looking and searching, so one's passive, one's active, that's where those
Hmm.
opportunities are going to come from. Where you're like, dude, this business seems really, really interesting. Like, I should just go like down the rabbit hole on it, right? I think
Yeah.
not afraid to reach out to people who have who puts some kind of content out there. Maybe they just wrote a book, or this guy's the top real estate agent in your neighborhood, or you have some idea, and then like, how do you kind of test it? And then an opportunity will fall in your lap, and it's not going to be where you think it's what's going to come from.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, it's funny enough that you say that because I when I was looking around, I reached out to you. I was looking at different jobs, sent out email to the big insurance, corporate insurance guy that I know has done really well. Curious about, what that life might look like, what getting into a position like that might look like. I was looking at, some software sales jobs out there potentially. In the midst of doing that, a recruiter from a different company hit me up with a role that's almost like a bridge between sales and what I'm doing now that would keep me in the industry. But it wasn't. The universe has a funny way of working because it wasn't until I woke up, started sending out emails, started reaching out, started thinking that a recruiter hit me up. But it happened on the same day, as literally as I was sending the emails, which I thought was funny. It's the universe kind of conspiring to drop a new opportunity in your lap. That opportunity is still kind of leaves me on that peg of it's not going to put me over the edge that I'm looking to get over, I guess. So that's why, I wanted to call or have this call, talk with you, bounce some ideas, off of you. And I guess I wrote down a couple questions.
Yeah.
If you were to learn one skill right now that you like, would it be, obviously you said I would assume it either would probably be sales. I think naturally just I'm the same way as you, where very empathetic to understand what people actually need. I can put myself in someone's shoes really well to understand and help them solve a problem that they might be having. That's why I was originally looking into sales, but knowing that you're from the lead gen background,
So we
and
don't,
do a
so we
lot of
don't, just to be clear, we're
or
not,
not
because
not lead gen, but ad
digital
agency
marketing,
stuff,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
digital marketing background. So I was kind of wondering, like, out of those two, I guess they somewhat go hand in hand a little bit. If you're good at digital marketing, you're technically good. You could probably sell stuff online.
Kind of. So I know a lot of weird dudes who are very introverted that destroy on digital marketing because they don't need to talk to anybody.
Hmm.
But so digital marketing is very analytical. And so people
Yeah.
think that it's just going to be like Avion and you come up with, or like Chanel, and you come up with this beautiful woman holding this handbag and like, there you go. And it's like Mad Men kind of, but it's not.
Hmm.
So like when we were hiring marketers, we only look for analytical, and I love guys with finance backgrounds. Because
Yeah.
if we're running huge multivariate tests, you need to be able to run pivots in Excel or similar with tools that we have to really like what combination of these things is working, what audience, what price point, and it's all math and data. Like it just really is.
Yeah.
And now, if you said a copywriter, can a copywriter be persuasive? I also know a lot of introverted copywriters. So, like, I know extroverted and introverted, I guess. But a sales guy's, for the most part, has to be an extrovert on some level. I'm not. Like,
Hmm.
I'm classically introverted if, like, you go through my personality profile, but I can, like, turn it on, but it's exhausting. So, like, I'll give you an example. If I go to a wedding and it's people I know and I go and I'm like on, I will leave the wedding for like 15, 20 minutes, go outside and sit by myself. This is a true story. I did it at the last wedding I was at with my wife. I did it at one of my best friend's wedding because it takes so much energy to be on that like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's draining. And I was like, dude, I got to go recharge the battery real quick. Versus other people, they just get like more energy. Uh,
Yeah.
but I think broadly it starts with sales. How you sell is the variable. So you
Yeah.
can be a really, really good copywriter. And so you can sell over email and with ads and stuff like that, let's say, with the copy, but maybe you're not analytical. You're just a creative copywriter. Well, you're going to struggle running ads because like you just don't see the numbers the same way that like an analytical person does. And
Yeah.
then same thing on the sales side, right? Like, yeah, and so I don't know, it's kind of a combination, but it broadly starts with sales. The sales channel that you pick is up to you.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. And that's a little bit of the bouncing around that I've done. in terms of not just the channel, but what I wanted to be selling. Like, does corporate insurance sound fun, or does selling software? It doesn't necessarily have to be fun. That's not the issue. Am I interested in it? Am I going to be able to like dive in, do a deep dive, like you're saying?
Most you would be surprised at the number of people that will respond to cold outreach. You would be surprised.
Yeah,
Um, because it's different than the average shit that they get. You're like, look, man, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm not asking for a job. I'm not asking for money. I'm like, do you have time to share your experience? And frankly, and then it's not just what worked, but like, what don't you like about your business is probably more valuable, right? Like,
hmm
I like that I have this job and I make a bunch of money. What do I hate? I hate that I'm working today. For me, I hate that I'm working long hours. I hate that we don't own a product. And so it's like harder to get like in the weeds and control some testing and stuff like that. I hate that I don't get to spend as much time with my family as I would like. That, this week I told myself a huge lie. I do this often. I was like, I'm gonna try to get off at 5 because the weather's been nice. I'm gonna make myself an old fashioned, pour a little whiskey, go outside, listen to some music, hang with the family and the dogs, and sit outside and enjoy the property we have. It happened 0 times this week. In fact,
yeah,
I wasn't off the computer before 9 any night this week, other than I felt guilty that, my wife was handling our daughter by herself. And like, I was like, fuck, I have to go do this.
yeah,
So, yeah, enterprise sales can be good. I know guys in that space, the swings are really big, but like you can make a bunch of money and then you hit a dry spell, right? And
yeah,
so like the turns are way bigger, but like that means you have gaps between big deal to big deal. And that can be
yeah,
stressful versus having something that just turns more regularly. Well, yeah, you're not going to sell these huge houses if you're a realtor, right? Like how many $10 million houses are there on the market at a time? Not very many. So you can go
yeah,
elephant hunting, but the guy crushing is the guy selling $500,000 houses and he's got a deal closing every fucking week, right?
yeah,
He traded cash flow for moonshots.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
all right.
Um,
What are the other questions? I got like five
uh,
left.
no, you're good. I guess this is more of just a general, not really a question, but if there are any opportunities that come up, whether that's in with your ad agency or within like your network, um, I guess maybe the question on that would be like, what skill do you find most in demand in your network of people that are running different businesses? Is it sales? Is it
Digital marketers, hands down, full stop, full
cool?
stop. Um, and it's
If
the
you were
hard.
to,
Go ahead.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
It's probably the hardest skill. Um, but everybody's looking for them. A lot of people think they are one, a good one anyway. Um,
Mm,
and dude, a good digital marketer moves across somebody's desk. Any single one of my friends, that guy gets a job. Like full stop. And then you're like, okay, what about copywriters? Less to an extent, creatives less. Like AI is just replacing or going to replace a bunch of these guys, right? And so like if
yeah,
you go back to the book business, like here's my thesis on this. Let's talk about copywriters. My guys are probably gonna watch this, which is fine. But if you have the ability with AI to make 1 million books, right? You're just like, AI, go come up with 1 million ideas and go make 1 million books for me. So you got a
yeah,
million books. Who, like, what's the job that's in demand now? Editors, right?
yeah,
So, like, there's this paradigm shift, right? And so, like, it's easy to create the copy, but then it still has to be edited. So, like, even if on the graphic side, we use AI to create a shit ton of graphic, million ads,
hmm
still got to kind of cherry pick and then you got to kind of tweak those ads a little bit. Like AI is not there yet. And so you're like,
yeah,
all
yeah.
right, so I got to change these things and whatever. And so the digital marketers by far, by far.
Okay. And if if you were to learn, is that learning digital marketing, is that more of you need to be a hands-on experience, or can you learn a lot about digital marketing self-taught on YouTube?
So
So,
there's so much content out there. There's like so much. But you still have to do it a little bit. And that's the,
to get a hold of it.
you got to try it, right? So like you read about
Mhm.
how to make a cake, you read 100 cookbooks. You have photographic memory, you have them memorized. But then you're like, why don't they talk about this thing? I went, I made a cake and it didn't turn out because like nobody talks about this thing in the recipe book, let's say, right? So
Yeah,
what do what do you do when your ad account goes down? So
yeah,
I'm helping my brother-in-law learn this business a little bit, and he brand new ad account, brand new whatever, and he put up some ads and his account went down. His profile got flagged. And he's like, fuck, what do I do? And I was like, well, here's what you do and whatever. Now he's using me as a resource, but like all of that shit is out there. Uh,
yeah,
and but you gotta try. It's like reading a book on how to ride a bicycle. At some point,
yeah,
you just gotta get on the bike and fall.
yeah.
Right? You can't read about how to keep your balance.
Or
Um,
yeah, or the golf swing. It looks they can everyone in the world to give you golf tips. Then you get out there and you slice the first one into someone's house.
yeah, and so it's digital marketing, and digital marketing is an interesting community. So I was talking to my dad about this a couple months ago, and he's like, "You know what's so crazy?" He's like, "You talk to all your competitors." One of our largest competitor, I have a standing weekly call with him, and I have for years. He's one of our largest competitors. He knows it. I know it.
Hmm.
But like, he's like, "Why do you talk to him or other guys that you just compete against?" And really, it comes down to, as they say in the copywriting world, you have a common enemy: Facebook and Google, right? And so, because everybody has this common enemy, which are the rails we ride, by the way, but like, its performance is terrible, costs are going up, like all these things. And so, like, you have this commonality in terms of, how do we win against Facebook? It's
Hmm.
kind of wild, actually. Like, my dad never talked to his competitors, right?
Yeah,
Like all the time in chats and shit. Like, first chat didn't exist then, but like, you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
Like I don't call up my competitors and go to lunch with them once a week. Why the fuck would I do that? And I'm like,
yeah,
you would if you were going after a trade organization, or I don't, if you had a common enemy, you would.
yeah, yeah. That makes sense. And it's I feel like you're saying, like so many people need digital marketing too, that it's not. Yeah, you might be battling over trying to find one specific client, but there's plenty of people out there and plenty of demand for it where it's not as
There's
no.
there's no shortage of clients. Name one industry that doesn't need digital marketing.
Yeah,
Like
they all do.
they all do.
Even even the fitness coaches that are selling courses need a digital marketer if they don't know how to do it.
Yeah, so all the guys selling courses, the B2B guys, like everybody. And so it's a there's a million people in the space, and like any industry, there are very few who are good and even fewer who are excellent. And
Yeah.
yeah, and so that's a but it's a skill that you can learn. The best way to do it is probably running affiliate something or other. So at least it's, dollar in, dollar out, like at least you're turning some cash flow.
Hmm.
But like I told my brother-in-law, I was like, by the way, expect to lose money for a while.
Yeah.
Like, it's like riding a bike. You're like, well, I don't know how to ride a bike. I'm going to buy this beautiful mountain bike and then I'm going to Vail. You're like, all right, dude, it's not that way. You're going to fall a bunch before you,
Yeah.
before you got it on lock. And, but if you enjoy it, then you'll be great. Like we've had guys, and for us, the way that we ran, like it's a promise of making a lot of money in your 20s. But there have been guys who, one, just inherently are not good, Like it just is what it is. And this is just over the years. There's guys who just don't like it. Um, by the way, like you need to watch your campaigns on Saturdays and Sundays. Those are the biggest days of the week. Do you have to build? Like if you work for us, like no, but you have to watch. Shit
Hmm.
breaks. Like ads not performing today for some reason, a link breaks, like, and you're like, how does a link break? I don't fucking know. It happens all the goddamn time. Um, Shopify used to go down all the time when we had the kids books. Like literally people, we would send traffic and like people could not buy.
Yeah,
And so what do? Well, you got to be watching and you got to kill it. Like there's no reason just burning money. So,
yeah, yeah. I can imagine as I've run digital ads for a couple different companies, and I can imagine with having an agency, how much funds are actually going towards certain ads, why killing it. Like you understand that you could really just be burning money if something's broken like that. So,
oh yeah, it's
um,
happened. I get a million more stories. All right.
but
What's the last
yeah,
question? Do you have one last
no,
one?
no, that's I guess that's basically, that kind of wraps up what I was looking to achieve. And I guess the one note that I want to leave you on is if you ever want to if you have any opportunities that do pop up, whether that's in your network or with you, and you're looking for someone that's hungry, that's looking to learn, let me know. If you also ever want to bounce, I know that you're looking to build something. If you're ever looking to bounce product ideas off of each other, I'd love to do that too. So
I appreciate it, man.